It will be tough, and you will still find the way to win.
Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century German philosopher, was a sharp observer of human nature and social dynamics. One of his key insights was that appearing less intelligent or knowledgeable than you are can often be a strategic advantage in life, hence the idea of playing dumb to win. Here's what he meant and why it works. 1. Avoiding envy and resentment. Schopenhauer noted that people hate feeling inferior. If you display superior intelligence, others may feel threatened, leading to envy, sabotage, or social exclusion. By downplaying your intellect, you avoid triggering these negative reactions, making it easier to navigate social and professional circles. 2. Manipulation and persuasion. When people think you're less sharp, they let their guard down. This allows you to observe more, influence subtly, and steer situations without resistance. Example: in negotiations, playing naive can lead the other party to reveal more than they intended. 3. Reducing expectations and over-delivering. If you present yourself as highly capable from the start, people expect perfection. But if you start modestly and then exceed expectations, you gain admiration. This is the under-promise and over-deliver strategy in action. 4. Avoiding unnecessary conflict. Smart people often provoke arguments by correcting others or showcasing knowledge. Schopenhauer advised staying silent or feigning ignorance to keep peace and maintain influence. As he wrote, "The cheapest sort of pride is national pride. For if a man is proud of his own nation, it argues that he has no qualities of his own of which he can be proud." Similarly, flaunting intelligence often reveals insecurity. The wisdom and seeming foolish Schopenhauer admired ancient philosophers who practiced the fox's stratagem, appearing harmless to avoid being targeted. In The Art of Being Right, he highlighted how rhetorical tricks and seeming simplicity can help you win debates without opponents even realizing they've been outmaneuvered. When should you use this? In competitive environments, workplaces, politics, where overt intelligence makes you a target. When dealing with egotistical people who can't handle being challenged. In negotiations or persuasion, where appearing less sharp gives you the upper hand. When should you avoid it? When honesty and transparency are more valuable, e.g., deep relationships, ethical leadership. When your intelligence is genuinely needed, e.g., solving critical problems. Final thought: Schopenhauer's advice isn't about actually being dumb, it's about strategic humility. As he put it, talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Sometimes the smartest move is letting others think they're the smartest.
Life Begins When You Find Yourself is a profound insight into the journey of self-discovery and personal transformation. Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, believed that true living doesn't simply start with birth or physical existence, but rather when an individual embarks on the path of understanding their true nature. Many people go through life conforming to societal expectations, suppressing their authentic desires, and living unconsciously. According to Jung, this is not truly living. It is merely existing. Life begins in the deepest sense when one awakens to their inner self, confronting their fears, desires, and unconscious motivations. To find yourself means to engage in the process of individuation, a central concept in Jungian psychology. Individuation is the journey toward wholeness, where a person integrates their conscious and unconscious mind, embracing both their light and shadow aspects. This is not an easy task. It requires deep introspection, honesty, and often facing uncomfortable truths. Many people avoid this work, preferring the safety of societal norms or the illusions they've constructed about themselves. But Jung argues that only by undertaking this inner work can one break free from superficial existence and step into a life of meaning and authenticity. Jung's idea also suggests that before self-discovery, a person is often living a borrowed life, shaped by parents, culture, and external influences rather than their own inner truth. Society imposes roles, expectations, and identities that may not align with one's deeper self. Some people spend decades chasing success, approval, or material wealth, only to feel empty because they have neglected their soul's calling. Jung believed that true fulfillment comes from aligning with one's unique purpose, which can only be uncovered by looking inward. Until this happens, life is a series of reactions, not conscious choices. The moment one finds themselves is often marked by a crisis or profound awakening, what Jung called a midlife crisis or a spiritual transformation. This is when the ego's illusions collapse, forcing a reckoning with deeper aspects of the psyche. Some people experience this as a breakdown, while others see it as a breakthrough. It can be triggered by loss, failure, or a deep sense of dissatisfaction with life. Jung saw these moments not as disasters, but as necessary steps toward rebirth. Only by losing the false self can the true self emerge, and that is when life truly begins. Jung also emphasized the importance of dreams, symbols, and the unconscious in this process of self-discovery. He believed that the psyche communicates through metaphors, guiding individuals toward wholeness. By paying attention to dreams, creative impulses, and synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, a person can uncover hidden aspects of themselves. This requires a willingness to listen to the inner voice, rather than relying solely on logic or external validation. For Jung, the unconscious is not just a repository of repressed thoughts, but a wellspring of wisdom, connecting us to our deeper, truer selves. This journey is deeply personal and cannot be rushed or forced. Some may find themselves early in life, while others may take decades. Jung acknowledged that this process is often messy and nonlinear, involving setbacks and confusion. Yet, he maintained that it is the most important work a person can do. Without it, life remains unfulfilled, a mere shadow of what it could be. But when one finally finds themselves, they step into their full potential, living with purpose, creativity, and inner harmony. Ultimately, Jung's message is both a challenge and an invitation. The challenge is to confront the unknown within ourselves, to face our shadows, question our assumptions, and break free from societal conditioning. The invitation is to embark on the greatest adventure of all, the discovery of who we truly are. In this sense, life doesn't begin with mere existence, but with awareness. The moment we stop sleepwalking and start living consciously. As Jung famously said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." To find yourself is to awaken, and that is when life truly begins.
Welcome to you, Achiever. Today we are going to discourse about the courage to be disliked by Ishiro Kashimi. Get ready to hear truth. Just the truth and only that. In The Courage to be Disliked, authors Ichiro Kashimi and Fumitake Koga present a profound lesson rooted in Adlerian psychology. Our unhappiness is largely self-inflicted because we rely too much on others' approval. According to Alfred Adler, a foundational figure in psychology, many of our emotional struggles come from seeking validation and fearing rejection. When we tie our self-worth to how others perceive us, we give away our power, allowing external opinions to dictate our happiness. This dependence creates anxiety, insecurity, and dissatisfaction because we can never fully control what others think. The book argues that true freedom and happiness come from embracing the courage to be disliked. meaning we must accept that not everyone will approve of us, and that's okay. This doesn't mean we should strive to be disliked, but rather that we should live authentically without being paralyzed by the fear of judgment. When we stop seeking constant validation, we reclaim control over our lives and emotions. Adlerian psychology teaches that our worth isn't determined by others, but by our own actions and choices. A key idea in the book is the concept of separation of tasks, understanding what is within our control, our own behavior and attitudes, and what isn't others' opinions. By focusing only on our own responsibilities and letting go of the need to manage others' perceptions, we reduce unnecessary stress. For example, if someone dislikes us for setting boundaries or pursuing our goals, that's their task to resolve, not ours. This mindset shift helps us live more confidently and peacefully. Ultimately, the courage to be disliked teaches that happiness is an inside job. When we stop depending on external validation, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of people-pleasing and self-doubt. Instead of seeking approval, we can focus on living in alignment with our values, building healthier relationships, and pursuing meaningful goals. The book's core message is empowering. True contentment comes when we have the courage to be ourselves, even if it means being disliked by some. To further expand on this idea, the book emphasizes that our past and upbringing do not determine our present or future, another key Adlerian principle. Many people blame their unhappiness on past traumas, societal expectations, or family conditioning. But Kishimi and Koga argue that we always have the power to redefine ourselves. While our past experiences shape us, they don't have to confine us. By shifting our perspective and taking responsibility for our present choices, we can break free from self-imposed limitations. This reinforces the idea that seeking approval is often just an excuse to avoid the discomfort of change. Another important takeaway is the distinction between competition and cooperation. Society often conditions us to see life as a competition, where we must outperform others to earn respect and validation. However, Adlerian psychology encourages a mindset of cooperation, where we focus on contributing to the community rather than comparing ourselves to others. When we stop seeing relationships as battlegrounds for approval, we foster deeper connections built on mutual respect rather than insecurity. This shift reduces envy, rivalry, and the constant need to prove ourselves, leading to greater inner peace. Finally, the book challenges the notion that happiness is a destination to be reached through achievements or others' praise. Instead, it frames happiness as a daily practice of self-acceptance and purposeful living. When we detach from the need for external validation, we begin to appreciate the present moment and find joy in the process of growth itself. The courage to be disliked is, at its core, the courage to live authentically, prioritizing inner fulfillment over fleeting approval. By embracing this mindset, we unlock a more resilient, independent, and genuinely satisfying way of life.
In the clamor of the modern world, where words are cheap and opinions are shouted into the void, silence emerges not as weakness, but as a formidable force. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher of strength and self-overcoming, understood this well. To wield silence is to master the art of psychological dominance, to rise above the petty noise of the herd. Here are 5 Nietzschean reasons why silence is power. 1. Silence as a mark of superiority. Nietzsche spoke of the Übermensch, the one who transcends the mediocrity of the crowd. The weak chatter endlessly, seeking validation, while the strong observe, measure, and speak only when their words carry weight. Silence is the posture of the sovereign individual, the one who does not need to prove himself through idle talk. In withholding speech, you force others to question, to wonder, to listen. When you finally choose to break your silence, your words strike with the force of thunder. 2. Silence reveals the folly of others. Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "Silence is worse. all truths that are kept silent become poisonous. But this poison is not for the silent. It is for those who cannot endure stillness. When you refuse to engage in every trivial debate, when you do not rush to defend or explain yourself, the insecure reveal themselves. They fill the void with their anxieties, their need for approval, their desperation to be heard. Your silence exposes their weakness. 3. Silence is the weapon of the will to power. Power does not announce itself, it acts. The loudest in the room are often the least dangerous. True power lies in the ability to withhold, to conserve energy, to strike only when the moment demands it. Nietzsche's philosophy teaches that strength is not in reaction, but in controlled action. Silence is the pause before the decisive move, the predator's stillness before the kill. 4. Silence guards the depths of the soul. Nietzsche warned against the vulgarity of exposing one's inner world to just anyone. Are you genuine, or merely an actor, a representative, or that which is represented? In the end, you might even be an imitation of an actor. The more you speak, the more you dilute your essence. Silence preserves the mystery of your being. It keeps the rabble from trampling over your sacred thoughts. Only in silence can the profoundest ideas gestate, far from the noise of the marketplace. 5. Silence is the ultimate contempt for the herd. The herd fears silence because it cannot manipulate what it does not understand. Gossip, outrage, and empty discourse are the tools of the weak, who seek to drag others into their pettiness. But the Nietzschean individual refuses to play their game. To remain silent in the face of stupidity is to deny it recognition. It is to say, "You are not worth my words." And in that refusal, you assert your dominance. Conclusion: the sovereign silence. Nietzsche's philosophy teaches us that true power is not in volume, but in restraint. Silence is the weapon of the strong, the refuge of the deep, and the unmasking of the weak. Master it, and you master the room without uttering a word. He who cannot obey himself will be commanded. That is the nature of living creatures. Thus spoke Zarathustra.
No, it will be tough, and you will still find the way to win.
Why do so many brilliant minds feel alone in a crowded world? Arthur Schopenhauer, the sharp-eyed philosopher of solitude, reveals a harsh truth. Society often fears deep thinkers because they expose uncomfortable realities. While most people cling to illusions for comfort, intelligent individuals see beyond the surface, leading to misunderstanding, resentment, and isolation. In this exploration, we'll uncover why intellect and loneliness so often go hand in hand, and how society's resistance to truth leaves deep thinkers wandering the edges of the crowd, forever outsiders in a world that prefers simplicity over depth. 1. The burden of uncommon insight. Intelligent people often feel isolated because their depth of thought sets them apart from the majority. Society operates on shared norms, superficial interactions, and collective beliefs, which deep thinkers frequently question. While most people find comfort in conformity, intelligent individuals see beyond these patterns, recognizing contradictions, illusions, and deeper truths. This heightened awareness creates a mental and emotional distance as they struggle to relate to those who don't share their level of scrutiny. Schopenhauer argued that the masses prefer comforting illusions over harsh realities, leaving the intelligent few alienated in their pursuit of truth. The more one thinks independently, the harder it becomes to engage in trivial or socially expected conversations, leading to a sense of solitude. 2. Society's hostility toward intellectual depth. Schopenhauer observed that society often fears and resents those who think deeply because they expose uncomfortable truths. Most people operate on autopilot, following traditions, trends, and inherited beliefs without questioning them. When an intelligent person challenges these norms, they are met with resistance, ridicule, or even hostility. The majority prefers the safety of ignorance over the discomfort of self-reflection, viewing deep thinkers as threats rather than allies. This creates a social barrier where intelligent individuals are either silenced or ostracized for their unwillingness to conform. The isolation they experience is not just loneliness, but a consequence of society's collective aversion to intellectual disruption. 3. The loneliness of authenticity. Intelligent people value authenticity, which is rare in a world dominated by social performance. Most interactions are transactional, driven by ego, status, or the need for validation. Deep thinkers, however, seek meaningful exchanges, discussions about philosophy, existential questions, or systemic flaws, topics that most avoid. Schopenhauer believed that true intellect requires solitude because superficial socializing drains the mind without offering real intellectual nourishment. As a result, intelligent individuals withdraw, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. Their refusal to engage in hollow small talk further isolates them, as society interprets their silence as aloofness rather than a preference for substance. 4. The tyranny of mediocrity. Society often celebrates mediocrity while marginalizing brilliance. Schopenhauer noted that the average person feels threatened by those who surpass them in intellect, leading to envy or dismissal. Institutions, educational, corporate, even social circles, reward conformity over originality, making it difficult for deep thinkers to thrive. Intelligence disrupts hierarchies, challenges authority, and exposes incompetence, making it an unwelcome force in systems designed for control. The isolation intelligent people feel is not just social, but systemic. They are pushed to the fringes because their very existence questions the legitimacy of the status quo. 5. The pain of unshared perspectives. One of the greatest sorrows of intelligence is the inability to share one's worldview with others. Deep thinkers see patterns, consequences, and hypocrisies that most overlook. But when they try to articulate these insights, they are often misunderstood. Schopenhauer described this as a form of imprisonment. The more one knows, the harder it is to communicate it to those who lack the same depth. This frustration leads to self-imposed isolation, as intelligent individuals realize that most conversations will never reach the level of understanding they crave. The resulting loneliness is not just about being alone, but about being surrounded by people with whom genuine connection feels impossible. 6. The paradox of intellectual independence. While intelligence grants independence of thought, it also removes the comfort of belonging. Schopenhauer emphasized that most people derive happiness from herd mentality, shared beliefs, collective rituals, and group identity. Intelligent individuals, however, resist such mental dependence, making them perpetual outsiders. Their refusal to blindly follow trends, ideologies, or dogmas means they rarely fit in. This independence is liberating, but comes at the cost of social alienation. The more they cultivate their minds, the more they realize how few people truly understand them, reinforcing their solitude. 7. The misinterpretation of intelligence as arrogance. Society often mistakes intelligence for arrogance, further deepening the isolation of deep thinkers. When someone speaks with precision, questions irrational norms, or refuses to engage in mindless chatter, they are labeled as condescending or elitist. Schopenhauer argued that this is a defense mechanism. The average person interprets intellectual confidence as a personal attack. Rather than engaging with challenging ideas, they dismiss the thinker as pretentious. This misjudgment forces intelligent individuals into silence, as any attempt to express their thoughts is met with resentment. The isolation, then, is not self-chosen, but imposed by a society unwilling to confront its own intellectual limitations. 8. The solitary path of truth seekers. Ultimately, Schopenhauer's philosophy suggests that true intelligence requires embracing solitude. The pursuit of wisdom is a lonely journey because few are willing to walk it. Society discourages deep thinking, rewarding instead those who comply with its illusions. Intelligent people must either dilute their thoughts to fit in or accept their isolation as the price of clarity. Schopenhauer himself lived a reclusive life, believing that solitude was the only way to preserve one's intellect in a world hostile to it. For deep thinkers, isolation is not a flaw but a necessity, the only environment where their minds can flourish without compromise.
In the clamor of the modern world, where words are cheap and opinions are shouted into the void, silence emerges not as weakness, but as a formidable force. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher of strength and self-overcoming, understood this well. To wield silence is to master the art of psychological dominance, to rise above the petty noise of the herd. Here are 5 Nietzschean reasons why silence is power. 1. Silence as a mark of superiority. Nietzsche spoke of the Übermensch, the one who transcends the mediocrity of the crowd. The weak chatter endlessly, seeking validation, while the strong observe, measure, and speak only when their words carry weight. Silence is the posture of the sovereign individual, the one who does not need to prove himself through idle talk. In withholding speech, you force others to question, to wonder, to listen. When you finally choose to break your silence, your words strike with the force of thunder. 2. Silence reveals the folly of others. Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "Silence is worse. All truths that are kept silent become poisonous. But this poison is not for the silent. It is for those who cannot endure stillness." When you refuse to engage in every trivial debate, when you do not rush to defend or explain yourself, the insecure reveal themselves. They fill the void with their anxieties, their need for approval, their desperation to be heard. Your silence exposes their weakness. 3. Silence is the weapon of the will to power. Power does not announce itself, it acts. The loudest in the room are often the least dangerous. True power lies in the ability to withhold, to conserve energy, to strike only when the moment demands it. Nietzsche's philosophy teaches that strength is not in reaction, but in controlled action. Silence is the pause before the decisive move, the predator's stillness before the kill. 4. Silence guards the depths of the soul. Nietzsche warned against the vulgarity of exposing one's inner world to just anyone. Are you genuine, or merely an actor, a representative, or that which is represented? In the end, you might even be an imitation of an actor. The more you speak, the more you dilute your essence. Silence preserves the mystery of your being. It keeps the rabble from trampling over your sacred thoughts. Only in silence can the profoundest ideas gestate, far from the noise of the marketplace. 5. Silence is the ultimate contempt for the herd. The herd fears silence because it cannot manipulate what it does not understand. Gossip, outrage, and empty discourse are the tools of the weak who seek to drag others into their pettiness. But the Nietzschean individual refuses to play their game. To remain silent in the face of stupidity is to deny it recognition. It is to say, "You are not worth my words." And in that refusal, you assert your dominance. Conclusion: the sovereign silence. Nietzsche's philosophy teaches us that true power is not in volume, but in restraint. Silence is the weapon of the strong, the refuge of the deep, and the unmasking of the weak. Master it, and you master the room without uttering a word. He who cannot obey himself will be commanded. That is the nature of living creatures. Thus spoke Zarathustra.
It's gonna be tough, but you will still find the way to win.
Niccolò Machiavelli, a 16th century Italian philosopher and political strategist, is best known for his seminal work, The Prince, which outlines the ruthless yet pragmatic principles of gaining and maintaining power. While he didn't explicitly list 8 rules of power, his teachings have been distilled into essential leadership lessons that remain relevant today. Machiavelli's ideas challenge conventional morality, emphasizing practicality over idealism. His work teaches that leaders must sometimes make tough, even controversial decisions to secure their authority and achieve long-term success. By studying his principles, modern professionals can learn to navigate complex power dynamics in their careers and personal lives. One of Machiavelli's core lessons is that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. He argues that fear is a more reliable tool for control than love, as people are less likely to betray or challenge someone they fear. However, he cautions against being hated. Excessive cruelty can lead to rebellion. In a modern context, this translates to assertive leadership, commanding respect through competence and decisiveness, rather than relying solely on likability. Leaders who balance authority with fairness often inspire both respect and loyalty, creating a stable and productive environment. Another key principle is the ends justify the means. Machiavelli advises that leaders should focus on outcomes rather than the morality of their methods, as long as the result benefits their position or organization. This controversial idea underscores the importance of strategic thinking. Sometimes unconventional or tough decisions are necessary for success. In business, this might mean making unpopular cuts to save a company or using aggressive tactics to outperform competitors. However, leaders must weigh the ethical implications to avoid long-term damage to their reputation or relationships. Machiavelli also emphasizes the importance of adaptability. He warns that relying too heavily on luck or fixed strategies can lead to failure. Instead, leaders must be flexible, adjusting their approach to changing circumstances. In today's fast-paced world, this means staying agile, whether pivoting a business model, embracing new technologies, or shifting leadership styles to suit different team dynamics. Those who resist change risk being left behind, while adaptable leaders thrive in uncertainty. A fourth lesson is mastering the art of deception when necessary. Machiavelli acknowledges that honesty isn't always the best policy. Sometimes leaders must withhold information or present half-truths to maintain control or avoid panic. In modern leadership, this translates to strategic communication, knowing when to disclose details and when to keep cards close to the chest. However, overuse of deception can erode trust, so it must be employed judiciously and with clear purpose. Machiavelli advises leaders to cultivate strong alliances, but avoid dependence on others. Power is often a collective effort, and having reliable allies can bolster one's position. However, relying too heavily on others creates vulnerability. In careers and business, this means building networks and partnerships while maintaining independence. Leaders should foster mutually beneficial relationships without becoming overly reliant on any single person or group, ensuring they retain control over their destiny. Another critical rule is to crush enemies decisively. Machiavelli warns that half measures against rivals can backfire, allowing threats to resurge. In leadership, this means addressing conflicts or competition with firmness and finality. Whether dealing with workplace rivals or industry competitors, hesitation or leniency can lead to prolonged struggles. Leaders must act decisively when neutralizing threats, though they should also avoid unnecessary cruelty, which can breed resentment. Finally, Machiavelli stresses the importance of appearances. Perception often outweighs reality, so leaders must project strength, confidence, and virtue, even if they occasionally act contrary to these ideals. In the modern era, this underscores the value of personal branding and reputation management. Leaders who skillfully craft their image can inspire followers, attract opportunities, and deter challenges. By combining these timeless principles with ethical judgment, today's professionals can harness Machiavellian wisdom to achieve power and success in their own lives.
When you stop being emotionally available to everyone, everything changes. It's a powerful lesson about boundaries, self-respect, and the cost of spreading yourself too thin. First, understand that being emotionally available to everyone is impossible. You might think it's kindness to always listen, to always be there, but the truth is, you're not a bottomless well. If you give all your energy to others, you'll have nothing left for yourself or for the people who truly matter. Jung is saying that real strength comes from knowing when to say no. Second, when you stop people-pleasing, you start seeing who really values you, not just what you can do for them. Some people will drift away when they realize they can't take from you anymore. That's not a loss, it's a filter. The ones who stay, those are your real relationships built on mutual respect, not just convenience. Third, protecting your emotional energy isn't selfish, it's survival. Jung believed that to grow, you must turn inward sometimes. If you're always giving pieces of yourself away, you'll lose sight of who you are. A man who doesn't know himself can't stand firm in this world. Fourth, setting boundaries changes how people treat you. When you're always on, people assume you'll always be there until you're not. Then they're forced to see you as a person, not just a resource. That shift in respect, that's when everything changes. Fifth, emotional unavailability isn't about shutting people out. It's about choosing where to invest. You wouldn't pour your savings into every hand that asks. Your heart is the same. Jung taught that wisdom is knowing what and who deserves your energy. Sixth, this is where true confidence grows. When you stop seeking approval from everyone, you start trusting yourself. That's what Jung called individuation. becoming your own man, not just a reflection of others' expectations. Seventh, the moment you pull back, life becomes clearer. Drama fades, fake friendships dissolve. You start hearing your own thoughts instead of everyone else's noise. That's when you can focus on what you want, not just what others demand. Finally, son, remember this. Jung wasn't telling you to be cold. He was telling you to be wise. Love deeply, but don't drown in the needs of others. Save your best for those who deserve it, starting with yourself. That's how you change everything.